guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to be doing a Q&A because I recently reached 60,000 subscribers, which is nuts. I know that I say this, and as time goes on, I just kind of like forget about subscribers. Like for years now, I've just kind of been like, I don't really pay attention to it unless someone asks me, whatever. But I just happened to notice that it was 60K, and I'm like, that's a city, you know? So that's wild. But thank you all for being here, those of you old and new. But I hadn't done a Q&A in a while, so I figured it was time. Also, a lot of you really liked this background, which was supposed to be temporary just for the Hades Persephone tier ranking video, which I will link on the screen, but I wanted to sit down, it was easier to do that. But I got so many comments saying that everyone loved the background with the plants and the books, so I think I'll switch between doing this background and the background from my books. But let me know what you like best if you like this background, because I mean, I do kind of like the vibes of this, but I wasn't expecting that. I thought that you guys wouldn't even really notice. So if you like this, let me know. But I'm going to start with questions from the bibliothecary. My bibliothecary supporters get a ton of different perks as far as voting and polls for video topics and books that I'll read. We do watch-alongs. We're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier right now. We have live streams monthly. They get an exclusive monthly vlog. We have a Discord server, all that. So if you're interested, I will link that on the screen, but they get first priority for the Q&A questions because I asked on the Discord. So I'm starting there and then working my way through all the other questions that I got on Instagram and such. So Malka asks, what is one unexpected thing that you're excited to do once pandemic restrictions are lifted? I don't think anything that I want to do is unexpected at this point. I think from the beginning, I've just wanted to go out to eat like at a restaurant because one of the ways I socialize and hang out with my friends is eating. So I would love to do that. At this point, I think the biggest thing, which again, not really unexpected, is that I just want to go outside without a mask on. I don't want to be sweating or like sniffling. I don't know if any of you have this, but I find that my nose runs more in the mask, which is kind of fun because no one can see it, but it's also like, if you need to wipe your nose and you have to take the mask off and it's just like this whole thing, and I don't want to deal with that. Or like your face sweating under the mask. I just don't want to do it. And I'm wearing my mask a lot more because now that I moved into Chicago, I have to wear it a lot more places, where in the suburbs, I basically was like in my car and would just get pickup and stuff and wouldn't have to wear a mask out. So I wasn't really like that used to it. I like never left my house, and I leave my house more here because I don't have a car and I have to like go and get stuff. And I'm just, yeah, I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm still gonna wear it until it's safe to not do so, but I would just like to not do that. I've also been weirdly missing live music because I moved, again, back here thinking, oh, I'll move to Chicago and it'll be like live music central. And I haven't been to concerts in years, but I'm like, I wanted to do concerts and I haven't been able to. So I think all of the things that I would be wanting to do are very expected. Rosie asks, do you have any channel plans or changes coming up? No real like changes, but my plans that I've briefly talked about in the bibliothecary as well is to do more like themed reading vlogs for books. Like again, in a similar category. I just did the Hades Persephone reading vlog, but I have more ideas kind of like that, but I won't share right now. But I have some ideas for just themed reading vlogs that I've wanted to do for so long because I've seen other people do them, and I just didn't feel like my TBR was short enough to like, I just didn't feel like I wanted to do that at that point. But now I really feel like my TBR is at a manageable spot. So reading books like from the library or things like that feels more, I don't know, better, like sustainable, because I just didn't want to have a bunch of books in my TBR and then not reading them, you know? So I have a lot of that coming up. I also have a very vague project that I don't know if I will do even this year because I feel like it's going to be a lot of work, sort of around astrology and books. So that might be happening at some point when I have the brain space to do so. Angel Muse asks, what are some of your long-term life and or bookish goals that you hope to achieve in the next 10 years? Here's the thing about goals. This is me getting into my like a therapist to speak already. Goals can be great, but realistically, a lot of our goals aren't actually achievable just by our own effort. So to have a ton of goals and to have that be a marker for yourself, it's not necessarily going to be very fulfilling because there's a lot of things that are goals that we don't have a lot of control over. We actually have control over very little. So what I try to do, what I tell my clients to do, is to live more values-based necessarily than goal-based, because you can live your values every single day, but you can't necessarily achieve your goals because you only have so much of a say in that and have a portion of that. So for like more values based stuff, I have more values around like connection. I want to connect more with more friends, make more friends in the area, make sure I'm making a lot of time for my existing friends, finding ways to connect. You know, obviously most of my friends are from BookTube and live around the world and the country, and we haven't been able to see each other. So there's been things we've done to kind of foster that, but as things start to become safer and more open, you know, making sure that we prioritize seeing each other. Like I said, having friends here and making connections here. I make a point to say hi to people in the elevator when I see them in the building. I made a friend at the dog park literally last night who has a similar kind of dog to me as far as they're both barkers. And so hopefully we're gonna hang out. Stuff like that. And I would love to have a relationship romantically at some point, but that's just, again, I just want to connect with people. So I don't have control over the goal of being in a relationship. I have no say in that, but I do have control over the value of connecting with more people in whatever way that means. Also with family and things like that as well, but that's kind of a given. Goals that I have a little bit more say in as far as like work and stuff, I want to get some more training in some of the specialties and some of the just populations that I really tend to work with. I want to get training in acceptance and commitment therapy, like official training in it. I want some more trauma training, possibly some more OCD, because we have a lot of OCD clients at my particular practice. So yeah, I want to do some more of that. That's more goals based. And reading wise, I don't really have a lot of goals right now. I've been very slumpy, which I will probably get to sometime in this video, but I don't have a ton of goals for that so much. So yeah, just kind of read what you want. Maybe, I guess one goal is maybe to try out more historical romance, which is something that I do have control over. So those are the big things. Aqua Marinade asks, how would you say your taste has changed over the years? I'm assuming they mean with reading. And you can definitely see this. I've talked about this when I've done my like wrapping up my feelings on old favorites videos and things, but obviously when I first joined BookTube, it was very YA heavy. It still is, but it was very YA heavy. I read a lot of YA and I enjoyed a lot of the YA, but then as I read more books at the volume that I was reading, you know, 75 to 100 books a year, my standards started to shift just because I was exposed to more things. Certain things ranked in a hierarchy for me. So I would say my taste has changed to more adult books. If you hear little tally boofs in the background, it's because she's not used to all the noises, and I don't have the white noise machines on right now because I'm filming. So she's like, sounds. So obviously I read way more adult books now than YA. I still read YA, obviously, but I read way more adult and I tend to enjoy adult books more. Still very heavily fantasy, that hasn't changed a ton, but I am reading more romance. Yeah, I would say the romance and the adult books, I think, is what has changed the most for me. Jana Banana asks, what elements do you look for in favorite books? Connections to characters, great world building, etc. Oh man. I think, generally speaking, it's, yeah, all of that. My favorite books, I would say, have really good world building. I have a really deep connection to the characters. You can see a very clear character arc and growth. There's probably some like good dialogue and stuff in there, although I don't necessarily pay attention to that, and I just connect to the writing. Plot doesn't necessarily always matter, but then, you know, like enjoying the plot obviously is like a thing, but I think my connection to the characters is probably the most important, and character connections with each other. And I think for my favorite books, the world and the characters feel so real outside of me reading them. What I mean by that is I feel like these things could exist without me, without this plot, like that they are existing on their own, sort of. And there's some books that I read that I'm like, I can't picture this as being something separate. It feels just very much like a story, where my favorite books very much feel like living, breathing things, if that makes sense. Van West asked, what videos are you the most proud of and the least proud of? I won't necessarily say that there's any that I'm like the least proud of or that I don't like. Like, I'm not somebody that goes back and watches old videos and hates them. I've never deleted a video on my channel. I have never felt the need to do that. Like, I haven't changed that much, or I haven't done anything like shitty, you know, where I've like needed to go back and change stuff. So there's really no videos that I'm the least proud of. I would say videos that require the least amount of like effort and stuff that I don't really necessarily feel like define my channel are things like book hauls or something. Like, I wouldn't point someone to a book haul as like, here's what my channel is like, you know? So my favorites then on the flip side of that are the videos that take way more time. So the discussion videos and like the trope talks and the discussions on things that are happening in like the book world and publishing and things like that. Like all of those discussion based videos are my favorites in general. I wouldn't say that there's like one that's my absolute favorite because I like most of the topics that I end up talking about. That's why I talk about them. But those tend to be my favorites, and then the other ones are like, you know, they're not bad. I don't dislike them, and I don't dislike doing them. I like doing them, but it's just like they're not indicative of me, you know? D asks, now that we're close to Shadow and Bone premiering, what other book series would you like to see get TV adaptations? The Witchland series by Susan Dennard I know has been like optioned, like Jim Henson Company or something is doing it. So I want that to actually happen. I would really like to see Mistborn be adapted. I think Daughter of Smoke and Bone would be cool. I think the Infernal Devices. I mean, even though I'm not like the huge Cassandra Clare fan, like I've said before, they feel like CW shows to me, therefore I would love that. Eliza Locke Lamora, Nevernight, Red Rising, all of my favorite things. There's some series and books that I feel like I don't know if I would ever be pleased with an adaptation, so like The Night Circus. I don't know if I'd ever like I mean, I would watch it. I would do all these videos about it, but would I be like necessarily thrilled about it? I don't know if that would translate, you know, same thing with Starless Sea. Same thing even with like the Winter Night trilogy. Like, would I love it? Yes, but I'm like, could you really embody that magic on screen? I don't know. So basically all of my favorite series I would love to see adapted if they were adapted well. Darkness 0780. Now that you're settled into your new place, any big gaming plans? I'm assuming video games. Not really, because I've been trying to read. I've been barely reading, but I've been trying to read and prioritize that, especially with some of the things I had this month, like Tome Topple and stuff. But I do have the Final Fantasy VII Remake that I ordered before I even moved, and I want to play that. So I'm thinking that maybe Cyberpunk, as the patches end up coming through, would be next. Obviously Mass Effect, the remake, is going to be coming out soon-ish in the grand scheme of things, so that's going to definitely happen. But I think those are like the next three up on my list of gaming plans. Tolstoy Jan 1851, if you could take elements from all of your favorite books to make one ultimate book, what elements from which books would you choose? For example, the world of Mistborn plus the characters of Shadow and Bone, etc. That is so hard, because I don't know who would necessarily fit where. My brain goes to like things that are similar, so like somehow combining the like Shadow and Bone Grisha world with like the Winter Night, you know, because it's that kind of like Slavic sort of vibes. So I feel like that would work, but for me, like I mentioned earlier, as far as favorites and favorite books feeling like they're their own living thing, putting characters into another world feels like impossible to me, because they're not just, I mean, they are fictional. I don't think that they're like, you know, real, but like they feel so attached to their different components that putting those characters or worlds and smashing them up, my brain won't let that work. My brain can't do it. Kenzie Ken asked, what made you decide to move to the area you did recently? What are the top 3 things you like about the area so far? As far as wanting to move to the area, a couple of different things. I wanted a place that was fairly like walkable, which is a lot of Chicago. But I also chose an area that is very my sort of demographic. So younger, like late 20s to early 30s professionals in this area. I didn't want to move to an area that was mostly college students. I didn't want to move to an area that was mostly like families. Like I wanted like single people around my age. And honestly, when I look outside my window, because I have a window that looks right onto a busy street, I see mostly like young people like my age. Like have I seen an old person? I don't know if I have. So definitely like demographic was like the main choice for that. Just having stuff around that I wanted to do, and there's like a ton of stuff within walking distance. It's also really close to a L station, which is our subway, and it's just very easy to get around. And that's kind of true of Chicago in general. But I chose an area that was very easy to get around in, because right now I don't have a car. As far as top 3 things you like about the area so far, kind of what I just said. Like I really like that it's very accessible to a lot of things. There's a ton of restaurants, which has been a thing for me. I try to eat out like only once or twice a week, as far as eating out, like takeout, I mean. But I am trying to like eat out to explore the areas and things. So that is something that I've been doing. So the food definitely, like there's international cuisines everywhere. It's awesome. Like I said, it is very walkable, and even though I live on like a very like city, I'm in like a mid-rise building, I live in like a very city kind of focused urban area. If you walk just a little bit over. You get into like this residential area with like grass and, you know, like houses and stuff. City houses still, but houses. So that's good for me walking Tally. There's like a park that basically turns into a dog park at night. During the day, it's like a playground area, but then at night, and it's fenced in. And then at night, a lot of people take their dogs and like they all play unleashed in there. So that's really cool. I just like being in the city. The vibes of this city in particular. I lived in Philly for a while and then on the East Coast, as you guys know, and I just didn't like it out there. As soon as I moved here, I was just like happy. I just like it here. It's easy enough to get to my offices. I will eventually have to have a car because my offices are in the suburbs, but it's easy enough to do that. I just like the vibes. I can't really explain it beyond that. And there's gonna be a ton to do when things reopen. That's another reason I kind of want to be in a city. Like when things start being available again, Chicago is going to be a party. Like it's just gonna be so good. And even this summer when things are still like, there's so much outdoor stuff to do in Chicago that I feel like it's even possible to do some of that stuff and still be really safe. So yeah, I just like it here. Bad Witch Books asked favorite Marvel movie and favorite superhero. Oh man. I think my favorite Marvel movie, even though I've only watched it once so far, because my heart, is probably Thor Ragnarok. It is so good. It's for the bisexuals, so it's made for me. It's just so good. It's one of my favorites. I really also dig Infinity War a lot. I like Black Panther a lot. I've watched Black Panther numerous times. I would say those are like my top 3, right? Even the original Avengers movie. I know they said just one, but even the original Avengers movie is like really good for what it was, you know? Favorite superhero, I'm assuming Marvel, but that's really hard. I can't choose like an absolute favorite. I would say my 2 favorites right now are probably Thor and Wanda. And then Captain America. Captain America was my original favorite Avenger. Captain America and Black Widow are basically like tied for favorite. But Captain America obviously got way more backstory with and everything else, so there's more attachment to him. So Captain America and Black Widow are my 2 original favorites. And then as we introduced more, and as we got more of Thor, like really Thor Ragnarok solidified Thor as like, you are my favorite. I love you so much. So I love him, and what they did to him in Endgame is still something that makes me continuously mad. And then Wanda is just everything to me, you know, and she has been for some time, like before even WandaVision. But then WandaVision really like solidified that. So I would say those are my absolute favorites. And then if we're talking like DC, Wonder Woman, obviously. And then do I have any, well, if we got into Image and stuff, that would be like too much, but I would say those are my faves. Dee also asked, what's one thing you wish you could travel back in time and tell yourself when you were just starting BookTube? I think I did everything pretty okay, honestly. I would say, I don't know, I wouldn't change anything. I don't think I need to go back and tell myself anything. Maybe, and this is even a message to myself now, like, don't sweat really shitty negative comments. They don't happen to me super frequently, but when somebody is just awful in the comments, I get like mad because my sense of justice wants to like smite them. And I can't. But I'm also like, even the most shitty comments I forget. So just don't think about it. Just like, you know, easier said than done, obviously, but don't ruminate on it and like, just let it go, you know, even maybe I don't really do this even now, but I have friends who have told me to do this, but like delete and block and go, you know, I haven't done that. This is a message for current self as well. But I think some of that would help a little bit. Like I said, it doesn't happen super often, but otherwise I would be like, go ahead, girl, do your thing. You're into good, don't sweat it. Luminara asks, imagine you could hire one author to rewrite any book series of your choice. Who would you hire and what book series would you choose? I think oh God, what's it called? World on something on Fire? Kingdom on Fire, my God. The Kingdom on Fire series by Jessica Cluess, which was decent, but should have been more books and whatever. It had such a cool premise. there almost was like a love square in it, which was like fine, whatever. It actually kind of worked in this series. And the premise was there was a bunch of different magic users, witches, magicians, and sorcerers, and they all had different ways their magic kind of translated. That was really cool. And they were fighting eldritch beings in Victorian London. And I would love to give that to somebody else. Maybe like Susan Dennard. I think Susan Dennard could do a good job with that. And just, it was already a pretty good series, but like really take it to like God tier level. Yeah. I think Susan could do that. Julie asks, what was your favorite vacation or trip you took before COVID? And what is your #1 recommendation from that vacation? Vacation trip before COVID. My heart kind of says like, we took like a family vacation to the Wisconsin Dells, a bunch of our booktube friends together. The Midwesterners made this happen. We went to the Dells and it was fun. Just because it was just like all of us hanging out. So I would say get like an Airbnb with like a bunch of people that ends up being like super cheap because it's Wisconsin, and do the water parks and go when it's warm enough, obviously. I would say that. I also really was overjoyed to do Mexico right before the pandemic started, but we just stayed at the resort, so I don't have any recommendations for that. I did do Europe as a teen, very like short, like 2-week trip that I delayed having a car for, to go on. And I think for any kind of European trip, and this is for me as a vacationer, I always say like, don't overdo it. Like, yes, you're gonna wanna do everything, but like, I would rather do one big thing a day than have like a packed day. So I think prioritization when it comes to vacations is the thing to do. Breezy asked, looking back, what's one book besides The Night Circus you wish you could go back and experience again for the first time? Oh my God, so many. Probably The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. I would love to like experience that again. Starless Sea, which is kind of cheating because another Aaron Morgenstern. Getting to experience the Grisha series, the trilogy again for the first time would be kind of fun. My first experience reading Red Rising was pretty fun. I really dug that. Yeah, most of my favorites would be just cool to read again fresh. Mistborn, you know. Yeah, some of those would be good. Jamie asks, favorite bookshops. I haven't found my favorite bookshop here yet, although I went to one, I think it's called the Book Cafe, like a couple weeks ago, and I walked around in there and they were really cool. Although there's a couple I haven't been able to visit a ton of bookshops like locally, but there's one, I think it's called like Semicolon Books or whatever. That's a Black woman owned bookshop. I forget which neighborhood it's in, but I have a whole thing on my phone of like places I want to visit, and I've seen pictures of the inside of that shop and it looks awesome. So I really want to go there. But yeah, I haven't really had a chance to find my favorite bookshops yet. Tolstoy Jan again asks, favorite fictional worlds. So many. I love the World in the Witchland series. Obviously I love the Grisha world. I love the world of the Winter Night trilogy. I like the Nevernight world. I like the Liza Locke Lamora world, the Becky Chambers Wayfarers sci-fi world, the World in Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri, City of Brass. Any of my favorite books, I tend to like the worlds in them. Are there any places, specific areas, or just countries in general that you would want to visit because it's in a certain book? The one that jumps out is Prague, because of Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I had like really no desire to visit Prague, and then it's only briefly like really in that book, but there's something about it that I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think I want to go there. Nicole E asked, any pleasant but unexpected surprises you've already encountered from living in this city? Again, not necessarily sure it's unexpected, but I've started using more city-based amenities, such as like DoorDash, which I heard actually DoorDash is kind of shitty, so I might need to switch that up. And then Instacart. I think Instacart is the game changer. It is just like getting your groceries delivered to your door without having to go to a grocery store. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, in the suburbs, I didn't need to do it because I could just pick up mine on like curbside pickup. But since, again, I don't have a car here, Instacart, man, that is magical. And then just like having stuff around. I don't know. It's just, I never really, not that I never thought I would live in a big city, but I didn't necessarily think like years ago that I would be in a city. But I do like it. I do. Again, just having like the amenities and things around is super awesome. Turner Keith Magus asks, what is the #1 thing you want people to take away from your videos and media content? just being able to discuss books and reading, honestly. But as an added bonus, and I feel like this has already kind of started to happen, I think having a more positive view of like mental health treatment, and being able to talk about mental health more. That's not necessarily something that pops up in like every single video of mine, but I feel like it's sort of like an undercurrent, you know, the fact that I do trigger warnings, the fact that in a lot of like my lives and stuff, I do talk about the fact that I am a therapist. That's my full-time job, and I hope that I give good information for people to make like decisions about sort of like their mental health and to pursue potential therapy, because I know a lot of times people have really negative experiences, and I just hope that people realize that that's not always the case, and that's not like what real therapy is and things. So I think that is sort of like my added bonus that I would like people to get from my content. D also asks, which fills you with the most existential dread, the deep ocean or outer space? Deep ocean. Space is fine. Space is great. I love space. The ocean, like, I'm not scared of the ocean, but deep ocean, like, I think a good way to talk about this, and this is only for people that really have watched and played Mass Effect, but Mass Effect obviously takes place in space. It's a video game that's in space and in like the far reaches of space. And there is a mission that you can do in Mass Effect 3 where you have to basically go in a deep ocean. That is the scariest mission. Like, that is like the scariest mission. There are so many other things that are like creepy about that game at times, but the deep ocean one is like, that is scary. And just like some of the stuff about the deep ocean, and I think I saw like a TikTok very recently that was saying that NASA was originally made to explore the deep ocean, and ever since they did that, they've been trying to get us off this planet. And I'm like, I don't know, I think the stuff in the deep ocean is messed up. It's cool though. Like, I kind of want to know, but like, I'm much more scared of deep ocean than space. Janine asks, are you worried about YouTuber burnout as your channel grows? Not so much as my channel grows, but just like, I do know now that I've done it for so long that I won't do this forever. Like, I don't know when it'll stop, but I won't do it forever. And I think I have gotten better about like, I used to never miss videos. Like, I didn't miss uploading videos for like, I went to the first 4 or 5 years of my channel. And now occasionally, like if I can't do it, or if I don't have the content to put out, like I don't have anything to talk about, I don't force a video. So I think that's important. And I don't like force myself to read. And I think I'm at a pretty good place with it. But is there sometimes where I'm just like, wow, I would have a lot more time and free time for other things if I didn't do YouTube, and if I wasn't sort of like needing to read slightly more than maybe I would if I didn't have a channel, just because of like content and stuff, and that's all like good positive things, but there's like two sides to everything, right? So I do feel that sometimes. But yeah, I feel like YouTuber burnout is real. I don't quite feel like I have a big enough channel to get like the full burnout that like large channels get, that I think are even larger than like our largest booktubers. But yeah, there's definitely that element to be aware of. But I think things like the bibliothecary community, and having spaces that are more like niched, and just like less crap in, I think makes that a little bit easier as well. Shan asks, when you finally are able to travel again, what are the top 3 places you want to visit, and what are some of the things you want to do while there? Number 1 is go visit Sarah Jane in the UK. That was a trip that we were supposed to do in like 2020, or that I mean, I would be going. But that was like the number 1. I still have a savings fund for that, for when eventually that can be a thing. I don't even know, maybe that'll be like 2023 at this point, who knows? But want to do that, and want to do like is it the Game of Thrones tour there? And like we want to maybe go visit Ireland while I'm there, and just do like all of the British things. I want to do all I want to also go to I forget the name. She'll probably comment it down below if she watches this video, but there's like a very magical place there too that I want to go to. Yeah, so I want to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2 is probably, I do want to go to Seattle. I want to go to like, or like the Pacific Northwest. Like I want to go to like a, you know, Pacific Northwest, like forest area. So that's a big thing. And just go to the woods. I just want to go to the woods. And then number 3, you know, I don't know what would be the next on my list of priorities. It would kind of depend on if I want to do international travel or not. I still kind of feel like, as much as I like the idea of solo travel, I like having like at least a buddy. So there's a ton of places internationally I like to travel. I just don't know how realistic it is. And also with my work schedule, it's very hard to take like a lot of time off. And I feel like for international travel, like it's best to kind of do that. So, so in that case, maybe it would be New Orleans. I've wanted to visit New Orleans around like Halloween. So maybe I could do New Orleans like Halloween 2022. That's cute, I like that. I wanna do, yeah, Magic Time in New Orleans. So I think those are the big ones. Nicole asks, what do you do when you hit a reading slump? I try to lean into it. I'm kind of in a slump right now. I try not to like force myself to read. So usually I will end up doing other things, like playing video games is like the biggest thing usually. Scrolling on a lot of TikTok, even though that's not super helpful, but I tend to go into more like video games. Like right now, if it wasn't Tome Topple, which is, Tome Topple is done now that I'm filming this, but with Tome Topple, I was really trying to get through my book, which I didn't quite finish. But if it wasn't Tome Topple, I would have just been playing video games because I don't feel like forcing it is really helpful. I know a lot of people go back and reread old favorites, and I haven't tried that yet, but that might be something that I do in the future. Sue asks, how is your food and exercise journey going? Kind of was like stalled, like not stalled so much, but like the intuitive eating stuff that I had done, I continue to do. Like that's all been fine. Like food stuff has been fine for me. Actually, since moving out of my parents' place where I was staying for the last year due to pandemic, I'm eating way better just because they would eat stuff that they liked, and that was kind of like not even what I would ever really eat, but it was convenient and it was there, so I would eat with them. But now I cook a lot healthier for myself when I have groceries that are just mine. That's what I naturally gravitate towards, not out of like, I'm not doing it to be strict with myself, it's just like what I do. So I feel like that is more in a balanced place, and I have worked out once in my apartment gym, but it's kind of like a hotel gym, like it's not very good. So I do need to join a gym eventually, maybe in like the summer when things feel safer. I am fully vaccinated, but I just want to give it a little more time for like the group, but I want to get back into lifting really bad. I am walking so much more here too, which again, that's not like, I'm not doing it for exercise, but I don't have a car. And so like yesterday, for example, I walked like over 5 miles because I was walking to different like plant shops I wanted to check out and had to just run a bunch of little like errands and stuff. So the walking is much more of a thing here than it was in the suburbs, just because you walk to get around to places in a city. So that's really nice too, because I just feel like my movement is up, and that makes me feel better just in my body. Like my body feels better when that is a thing, so. Burglar Hobbit asked, have you listened to the 2 latest Taylor Swift albums, and if so, which do you prefer? I have, but not all the way through. I'm not like a Swiftie. I like her just fine, and I like certain songs and stuff, but I've sort of like both of, I don't know, have I listened to Evermore? So I haven't listened to them all the way through. I think I listened to Folklore possibly all the way through when it first came out. But I kind of like them both because I kind of feel like, I mean, from what I've heard of the fans, they think a 3rd album is going to come out and that they're kind of like a trilogy, right? They all have like a similar vibe. So I kind of like all like the vibes of these. I like the one with Haim. I think he did it. Just can't prove it. No Body, No Crime. That's the name of it. I like No Body, No Crime. I like the one with Bon Iver. I haven't listened to some of these songs in like a hot minute. They're not on my most played recently. That has been Sea Shanties. And the new Lil Nas X song. Ren asked, if someone wanted to start reading more adult fantasy, specifically diverse adult fantasy, what books would you recommend? I find that a lot of adult fantasy seems to be cishet white guy stories. I'm just tired of that. Most of the stuff that I recommend, as far as like some of my favorites, are probably like what I would recommend if you want to start getting into more diverse adult fantasy. Especially for beginners getting into adult fantasy, I would say Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri, maybe City of Brass, the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I don't think that that's too complicated for beginners. While it will sort of like dump you in a little bit at the beginning, I don't think it's too hard to pick up. If you want to try something that's a little bit more like in our world contemporary fantasy, like an urban fantasy, I think Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse is really good for that, because you have to deal with like less of the like sort of like high fantasy type stuff, but you still have like paranormal fantastical creatures in it as well. So those would be my like 4 recommendations. And that is it for all the bibliothecary questions. So this is already very long, so I'm gonna actually do a part 2 with all of the Instagram questions, and that's gonna be on my other channel later on this week. So I will link that when that is a thing, but if you have not followed my other channel, the link for that is down below in the description. So, and I think I can probably do like a like a card wherever that you can follow there if you haven't. That's where I talk about all things that are not necessarily book related. There's gonna be book related questions in there because this was just a general Q&A, but check that out because I don't wanna make this video too super long. So all of the other questions, if you ask me questions on Instagram, will be there. So I will see you there with the second video. Thank you all for watching and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.